Imagine you become the President of the United States, the leader of the world's biggest economic powerhouse, the most powerful chair on the planet. You have access to state secrets, control of the nuclear arsenal, and yet, you can't even keep your own taxes in order. Congrats. You're Donald Trump, the man who proved that even at the top of the world, you can still get hit by the taxman, just like any average Joe who got caught in the tax net after declaring a used laptop. Let's start with the raw facts. Trump spent years refusing to release his tax returns. He was the first president in decades to keep them secret. While his predecessors showed transparency, he just said, "I'm under audit," as if an audit was a lifetime excuse to hide an accounting mess. So, what was he hiding? When the documents finally leaked, what came out was worthy of a tax. Comedy script. In 2016 and 2017, Trump paid only $750 in federal income tax per year. That's right, $750. The same amount an intern in a fintech startup spends on lunch in a month. Now think about it. A billionaire who owns casinos, hotels, golf courses, reality shows, and brand licensing, paying less tax than a delivery guy working overtime on weekends. If that isn't capitalism with a reality glitch, I don't know what is. Hold on, there's more. In some previous years, Trump paid zero. Nothing. Why? Because he declared absurd losses, reaching over $900 million in losses. This legally allowed him to offset taxes for years on end. It's like saying, I lost so much money, I'm now immune to the IRS. The trick? A maze of shell companies, creative deductions, and questionable valuations. Like declaring his own haircut as a deductible business expense. Yes, the cement-haired comb-over was logged as an operational cost. Even hairspray made it into the books, and it doesn't stop there. It turned out Trump used his own properties as business assets to justify personal expenses. In other words, he'd use family properties, claim they were for business, and then shift personal costs into company accounts. A true Excel ninja or a tax bait master. Meanwhile, Trump campaigned saying millions of Americans take advantage of these tax rules and that he was just playing by the rules. Technically, he wasn't lying. The system is rotten. But when you present yourself as a finance genius and have to hide behind tax loopholes like a student cheating on a test, maybe the genius is more of an improviser than a mastermind. Now put all this together with the fact that he was president while these tax controversies surfaced. A leader who should have set an example of ethics and transparency, but hid his earnings like he was selling bootleg DVDs from his car trunk. And the most ironic part? During this time, Trump gave nationalist speeches about rich people who dodge taxes, while becoming the biggest example of exactly what he was criticizing. The golden rule of politics: accuse the other guy before they accuse you. But the peak of cynicism came when he openly said, "This shows I'm smart." He paid almost no taxes, used the system for his benefit, and bragged as if he won. And now think about the everyday worker who pays 20% of their salary every month, struggles not to get flagged by the IRS, and reports even the church bazaar donation. Only, imagine building a personal brand so massive, so everywhere, that just your name on a building was worth millions. It was luxury, power, and success wrapped in gold letters. And then, you go and blow it all up yourself. How? Scandals, bad decisions, and that trademark arrogance only Trump could serve. Yes, we're talking about the Trump brand. A business empire once shining with 5-star hotels, luxury golf courses, casinos, and properties scattered around the globe. That golden signature on a skyscraper was a status symbol. But then, the disaster began. First, the casinos. Remember? Trump Taj Mahal? That ocean of debt swallowed whole. One by one, his gambling palaces started closing their doors. And with them went the reputation, because nothing kills a luxury brand like repeated bankruptcy. Then came the hardest blow. Buildings and ventures started removing the Trump name from their facades. No, you didn't misread. The symbol of identity was erased like a stain on the red carpet. Why? Because Trump became synonymous with controversy and scandal, staining the prestige of the business. Hotels that once proudly wore his name had to rebrand or sell licensing rights to other companies. It was as if the famous surname became a liability instead of an asset. Contracts were canceled left and right. Businesses that once loved flashing the Trump name started asking, is it really worth risking our reputation for a name now associated with chaos? The scene got surreal. The same name that sold million-dollar apartments and five-star hotels became the ex who's blocked on social media, better avoided than embraced. The situation only worsened with political and legal scandals. Every negative headline was a new nail in the Trump brand's coffin. People stopped linking the name to luxury and started associating it with lawsuits, investigations, and controversies. Ironically, Trump himself tried to fight back. He invested in hotel renovations, launched new projects, but the public and investors were tired. The damage was too deep. Even merchandising, watches, clothes, fragrances, saw the Trump name lose its shine. What was once success became a textbook case of when marketing can't save a burned brand. The cruel paradox: the man who built his fortune on his own name ended up digging the grave for that very brand with his own hands. Between fiery statements, family scandals, lawsuits, and a string of bankruptcies, he was the main architect of his brand's downfall. Trump's name is so globally known that ignoring it is impossible, but today the recognition is more a warning than a welcome. In the end, this fall teaches a harsh lesson for every entrepreneur. A brand is only worth what people believe in, and once a reputation is lost, it's hard to get it back. Trump might keep trying, but the trail left by controversies and failures weighs like an anchor dragging down the brand's reputation. When you hear Trump fortune, it's easy to picture Donald Trump's kids swimming in pools of cash, popping champagne, and living the lavish life every billionaire heir deserves. But the reality? It's a lot messier, or let's be honest, downright complicated. Donald Trump didn't just pass down piles of money to Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric. He handed over a full-blown legal soap opera packed with lawsuits, investigations, and family drama that would make any lawyer pull an all-nighter. Let's lay it out. All three adult Trump kids are tangled up in legal troubles. From accusations of business fraud to investigations over shady financial dealings, none of them escapes the shadow of the patriarch. Donald Jr.? He's been swept up in probes tied to his dad's political campaigns and questionable Russian connections. Ivanka, once a White House advisor, faced harsh criticism and legal battles over alleged use of influence for personal gain. Eric? He's right in the middle of family company controversies. And here's the kicker. It's not just about inheriting money. It's inheriting headaches. Lawsuits that chew up time, cash, and patience. Managing a fortune tangled with legal mess? That's no champagne party. The constant public spotlight doesn't help. Every step they take gets analyzed. Every slip makes headlines worldwide. The Trump name is basically a legal investigation guarantee wherever they go. Still, the kids try to keep their businessman image intact, launching projects, expanding ventures, trying to separate their names from their dad's scandals. But come on. When your family head is a walking controversy, it's an uphill battle. Another annoying question for the Trump heirs. Despite publicly declared fortunes, there's serious doubt about how much money the family really has, and whether it'll cover the growing fines, lawsuits, and debts piling up. So while Ivanka shines at galas and Donald Jr. pops up on podcasts, behind the scenes it's a legal war zone worthy of a crime drama. In the end, the question remains, can Trump's kids ever shake off this gigantic shadow, or is their last name more curse than blessing? When Donald Trump launched his presidential campaign in 2015, one of the flashiest and most controversial promises was building a wall on the Mexican border. A wall that, according to him, would be paid for by the Mexicans themselves. Spoiler alert, it never happened. The wall became the symbol of everything controversial about Trump's presidency. A grand promise, racial politics, fierce political battles, and of course, a bill nobody wanted to foot, except American taxpayers. Let's break it down. The idea seemed simple: build a physical barrier to stop illegal immigrants and drugs. But in practice, the project turned into a financial and logistical nightmare. Costs skyrocketed into the billions, way beyond the initial estimates. What was supposed to be a campaign trophy ended up costing more per square foot than many skyscrapers. Then came the backlash. The wall became a laughingstock on social media. Memes, jokes, sharp criticism, and fundraising campaigns to build cardboard walls flooded the internet. What was meant to be a symbol of strength turned into a punchline. But the worst wasn't just the money. The wall deepened America's social divisions, fueling hate speech and polarizing opinions that still echo today. And the bureaucracy? Land. Rights disputes with Native American tribes, environmental hurdles, and local government resistance slowed progress. Result: many parts of the wall remain unfinished or outright canceled. In the end, the wall became a symbol of Trump's administration, promising quick fixes but hitting the brick wall of political complexity. Ironically, a structure designed to keep people out became a monument to political farce. The wall turned into a global joke, a prime example of how big promises can implode into colossal disappointments. Ultimately, Trump's wall wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a wall between promise and reality, populist rhetoric and government complexity, campaign grandeur and brutal budget math. When you think of the Trump fortune, it's easy to picture Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric swimming in pools of cash, popping champagne, and living the billionaire heir life everyone imagines. But reality? It's a lot messier, and a whole lot more complicated. Donald Trump didn't just hand down a stack of cash to his kids. He passed along a legal soap opera packed with lawsuits, investigations, and family feuds that would keep any lawyer up all night. Let's get to the facts. All 3 adult Trump kids are tangled up in legal battles or under investigation. From allegations of business fraud to financial shadiness, the whole trio can't escape the shadow of the old man. Donald Jr. found himself smack in the middle of probes involving his dad's political campaign and suspicious Russia ties. Ivanka, who once held a White House position, faced harsh scrutiny and lawsuits over alleged misuse of influence. Eric? He's a key player in multiple controversies around the family business. And here's the kicker. It's not just about inheriting the money. It's inheriting the headaches. Lawsuits that demand time, money, and serious patience. Managing a fortune isn't easy when it's wrapped up in legal knots. The constant public spotlight doesn't help either. Every move the Trump heirs make is dissected by the media, and any slip-up instantly headlines worldwide. The Trump name is now a guaranteed investigation stamp wherever they go. Despite all this chaos, the kids try to keep up the businessman act, expanding ventures, launching projects, and desperately trying to separate their brands from dad's. Controversies. But let's be real. When your family head is a walking controversy, the challenge is massive. Another uncomfortable truth. Even with their publicized wealth, questions linger about how big the Trump family's actual fortune really is, and whether it'll cover the growing debts, fines, and legal bills. So while Ivanka glides through fancy events and Donald Jr. chats on podcasts, behind the scenes are legal battles worthy of a crime drama series. The family legacy? Not just money, but a mountain of problems. At the end, you gotta ask, will the Trump kids ever shake off this gigantic shadow, or is the family name more curse than blessing? What do you think? Can the next generation handle the heat, or will they sink with the family ship? Drop your thoughts, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. When Donald Trump launched his 2015 presidential campaign, one of his most iconic and controversial promises was to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. A wall that, according to him, would be paid for by the Mexicans themselves. Spoiler alert. That never happened. The wall quickly became the symbol of everything controversial about Trump's presidency. Grand promises, racial tensions, heated political battles, and a bill nobody wanted to foot, except American taxpayers. Let's break it down. The idea seemed simple. Build a physical barrier to stop illegal immigration and drug trafficking. But in reality, the project became a financial and logistical nightmare. Costs skyrocketed into the billions, way beyond the original estimates. What was supposed to be a campaign highlight ended up costing more per mile than some skyscrapers. Then came the social media backlash. Memes, jokes, savage critiques, even fundraising campaigns to build cardboard walls flooded the internet. What was meant to symbolize strength turned into a punchline, but the worst part wasn't just the money. The wall deepened divisions in American society, polarizing opinions and fueling hate speech. The rhetoric surrounding the promise created tensions that linger even today. The bureaucratic hurdles were brutal too. Issues with indigenous lands, environmental concerns, and resistance from local governments slowed the project to a crawl. Many sections were left unfinished or outright canceled. The wall became the perfect symbol of Trump's management style. Big promises that met harsh political realities and complex immigration issues. Ironically, a project designed to keep people out ended up becoming a monument to political chaos. The wall became a global joke, a case study in how massive promises can end in massive disappointment. In the end, Trump's wall wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a wall between promise and reality, populist rhetoric and government complexity, campaign hype and cold budget math. Let's face it, Donald Trump is, for many, the ultimate symbol of the American dream. The guy who went from real estate hustler to billionaire, U.S. president, and global celebrity. But what happens when the public image of success doesn't match the financial reality? That's the cruel irony of the Trump saga. He can go bankrupt, face lawsuits, endure investigations, and still keep the aura of a winner with his fan base. But money math doesn't lie. Did you know that despite the famous name, many banks and investors simply don't want to take risks on Trump? Exactly. The guy who's declared corporate bankruptcy 5 times and is buried under billions in debt is seen as a high risk, which, in the finance world, is like being the kid nobody wants to play with on the playground. This contradiction reveals a harsh capitalism paradox. You can be a pop culture icon, have millions of followers, be a public figure, and still be drowning in debt nobody wants to finance. Data shows Trump often had to rely on non-traditional credit sources, sometimes from people and companies willing to take bigger risks in exchange for high interest. In other words, he became that client banks avoid, the one who's always broke but keeps asking for more money. Meanwhile, his public image remains that of a powerful mogul. He's idolized by many as a success story, even if that success is peppered with business failures, scandals, and financial struggles. This phenomenon is partly explained by Trump's masterful ability to craft powerful narratives and control the media, creating an illusion of success that hides the brutal truth behind the numbers. But deep down, this gap between image and reality has real consequences. A reputation that can't back up debts, an empire built on shaky ground, and a legacy that might be closer to bankruptcy than triumph. The crazy part? For many, this roller coaster only adds to Trump's mystique. After all, who doesn't love a character who defies odds, even if it means stumbling along the way? At the end of the day, the lesson is clear. In business, a good image helps, but it doesn't pay the bills. And those who live by appearances alone can end up broken, no matter how many eyes are watching. When Donald Trump launched his presidential campaign in 2015, one of his most iconic and controversial promises was building a wall along the Mexican border, a wall he claimed the Mexicans would pay for. Spoiler alert, that never happened. The wall became a symbol of everything controversial about Trump's presidency: grand promises, racial tensions, fierce political battles, and of course, a bill no one wanted to foot, except American taxpayers. But let's break it down. The idea seemed simple: build a physical barrier to stop illegal immigration and drugs. In reality, the project turned into a financial and logistical nightmare. Costs skyrocketed into billions, way beyond initial estimates. What started as a campaign promise became a project that cost more per square foot than many skyscrapers, and the social reaction? Almost unanimous mockery online. Memes, jokes, savage critiques, even fundraising campaigns to build cardboard walls flooded social media. What was meant to be a symbol of strength turned into a trophy of political ridicule. But the worst part wasn't just the money. The wall deepened divisions across American society, polarizing opinions and fueling hate speech. The rhetoric that accompanied the promise created tensions that linger to this day. The bureaucracy, land issues with Native American tribes, environmental concerns and resistance from local governments slowed progress. Many sections were left unfinished or outright canceled. More than just a physical barrier, the wall became a symbol of Trump's management style, promising quick fixes but running headlong into the complex realities of American politics and immigration. It's ironic that a structure meant to keep people out became a monument to political chaos. The Trump wall is now a worldwide joke, a prime example of how big promises can turn into big failures. In the end, the wall was more than just concrete and steel. It was a wall between promise and reality, between populist speech and government, complexity between campaign grandiosity and the cold math of public budgets. Let's face it, Donald Trump is for many the ultimate symbol of the American dream, the guy who went from real estate to billionaire, U.S. president, and global celebrity. But what happens when the public image of success doesn't match the financial reality? That's the cruel irony of the Trump saga. He can bankrupt casinos, face lawsuits, deal with investigations, and still keep the aura of a winner for his loyal fans. But money math doesn't lie. Did you know that, despite the famous name, many banks and investors simply don't want to take the risk with Trump? Exactly. The guy who declared corporate bankruptcy 5 times and owes billions in debt is seen as high risk. In the finance world, that's like being the kid who always loses on the playground. This contradiction exposes a harsh capitalism paradox. You can be a pop culture icon, have millions of followers, be a public figure, and still be drowning in debts no one wants to finance. Data shows Trump often relied on non-traditional credit sources, sometimes from people and companies willing to take bigger risks for higher interest. In other words, he became that client banks avoid, the guy who keeps breaking and asking for more money. Meanwhile, his public image remains that of a powerful magnate. He's idolized by many as a success story, even if that success is riddled with business failures, scandals, and financial troubles. This phenomenon is partly explained by Trump's masterful ability to spin powerful narratives and control the media, creating an illusion of success that hides the harsh numbers behind the scenes. But deep down, this clash between image and reality has real consequences. A reputation that can't cover debts, an empire built on shaky ground, and a legacy closer to bankruptcy than triumph. What's fascinating is that for many, this roller coaster of wins and fails only adds to Trump's mystique. After all, who doesn't love a character who defies the odds, even if it means stumbling along the way? In the end, the lesson is clear. In business, a good image helps, but it doesn't pay the bills. And those who live only by appearances may end up broke, even with millions watching. What's your take? Is the Trump image bigger than his debt? Or is the debt the true face of his success? Drop your comment, smash that like, and subscribe to keep following this saga of drama and contradictions. When Donald Trump launched his presidential campaign back in 2015, one of his flashiest and most controversial promises was the construction of a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. A wall that, he claimed, would be paid for by Mexico itself. Spoiler alert, that never happened. The wall became the ultimate symbol of everything controversial about Trump's presidency: grand promises, racial tensions, fierce political battles, and of course, a bill no one really wanted to foot, except the American taxpayers. Let's break it down. The idea seemed simple enough: build a physical barrier to stop illegal immigration and drug trafficking. But in practice, the project turned into a financial and logistical nightmare. The costs skyrocketed into billions, way beyond initial estimates, and what started as a campaign promise turned into a project with a per-square-foot price tag, higher than many skyscrapers. Then there was the reaction. The wall quickly became a global joke. Memes, jokes, savage criticism, even fundraising campaigns to build paper walls flooded social media. what was supposed to be a symbol of strength, turned into a trophy of political ridicule. But the worst part wasn't just the money. The wall deepened divisions within American society, polarizing opinions and fueling hate speech. The rhetoric around the promise left scars that remain to this day. And the bureaucratic headaches? Land disputes with indigenous tribes, environmental challenges, pushback from local governments slowed down the project more than expected. Result: many sections remain unfinished or were scrapped altogether. More than just a physical barrier, the wall came to represent the Trump administration's promise of quick fixes that crashed headlong into the messy realities of American politics and immigration. Ironically, a project meant to keep people out became a monument to political chaos. The wall turned into a worldwide punchline, a perfect case study on how huge promises can end in massive disappointments. In the end, Trump's border wall was more than concrete and steel. It was a wall between promise and reality, between populist rhetoric and the complexity of governance, between campaign grandiosity and the cold, hard math of public budgets. What do you think? Was the wall ever more than a political stunt, or just an expensive joke? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe to stay tuned for more episodes from this roller coaster saga.